What's up, amigos? Commander Jaime here today. Today we're going to over a Thavas Premium deck profile that actually got first in the team league recently in Newark. And so I'm going to go over some of the spicy techs and some of the mindset that the player had. So let's get right into it.
Check out Next Level Gaming's playmats, as we got some recent ones. We got some more overdress playmats, but also the Garrett Chronicle one is really cool too. I know Mr. Time Leap or Vanguard Insider really loves this playmat too, so I definitely recommend it. It's really cool artwork. Even I like it, and I don't play the clan. Check out their playmats too, and you can use the affiliated link down below for a 10% discount on your next purchase.
First off, where credit is due, this is specifically for David's song. I'll put a picture of him too and his team. They did phenomenal. They got first place overall for the whole event. There was actually 6 rounds and 3 rounds of 6 rounds of Swiss, 3 rounds of top 8. And he went pretty much X1 the whole way too, which is really phenomenal too, especially with the Thavas deck. And there's a lot of like potential with this deck to do well in the current format too. And his team Go Next really just like capitalize on that too. With Thavas specifically, we already know that the strong play that we have is the Lambros play. And so if you're going first and you ride to grade 3, you can pseudo stride into the Lambros grade 4 from the main deck and do your thing of like 5 attacks too, right? And then make beefy columns as much as you can too. But as you may have noticed, with another tech choice that he had was the Magnolia Elder. So for those that know, on overdress we got grade 4s, which means we can use this in the Lambros deck. Thavas actually can ride any grade 4 from the main deck, so it's not specifically just Lambros, so you can actually ride Elder instead of Lambros too. And so you may be asking yourself, why would you go into this rather than just Lambros? And a couple reasons. So one of the expectations and mindset that David had was that what if he did get damaged to now? There are some players that will deny damage and keep you at 0. So doing a Lambros turn didn't really help you. You just essentially get another drive, you got a beefy Vanguard, and you got really 4 attacks if you think about it with the Excel circle. So while that is happening, why not have another extra option? And that's why the Magnolia Elder comes into play, is because it already has inherent triple drive. So then with Thavas' skill, given an additional drive check, you'll be quad check. That's amazing. And that can be scary too. If your opponent's already like at 3 damage, more than likely they're going to be very afraid taking your Vanguard attack. And that's one of the things that he noticed too as he played through the event as well. So people will be very cautious of that. And it really was something that when it's placed too, it has the skill that you can call something from the soul to rearguard circle. And here's where some of the mentality comes into play, where people are familiar that Thavas could technically ride down to grade 2 just with not having a grade 3 in Soul, and then by the comprehensive rules, you have to choose something from your Soul to ride as a new Vanguard at the end of the turn, right? And so Magnolia Elder right off the back essentially Soul Blast that grade 3 for you. So you can call that Thavas grade 3 that you rode with initially as a rear guard, and now that Thavas can also be used with his skill as well. So it's just something that we appreciate in the long term as well too. Believe it or not, like as I chatted with David, he's also known as K on Discord. I'll put his Discord tag too as well. That he actually preferred going into Magnolia Elder in most games. And what I was thinking about too is that this is something that you can still have quad check, have some rear guards, you rest whatever you have. Of course, they stay rested because Lambros was the one to restand them. But you still are able to do some attacks and pressure, and then at the end of the turn, you'll just ride back down. And you have no counterblast at that point too. So what he would do is guard early too. So specific matchups like the Nightmare Dolls, for example, and even Magic Grand Blue to an extent too, is because once you are at 0 damage and you're able to do that play, and you go into the stride turns, you have Jumbo to build a massive hand, like ideally like 15 plus cards, right? So then at that point, it's just like back and forth until you actually just break through. And it's worth noting too that one of his major pieces to finish the game is Valeos, and he actually was able to win like 6 of his games throughout the whole day with Valeos. And some players don't use this as often, and I've always mentioned this too, is that Valeos locks the opponent's Vanguard at 11k. And so that's big because if your opponent, whether they be at 5 damage or even less, this prevents from damage checks like triggers to give their Vanguard power up, so it makes your attack less effective in the sense of like multi attack. But it also stops the over triggers, so you can rely on Valeos as a guaranteed card. Like, hey, I just need to hit so many attacks, and to the point I deal that 6 damage, And regardless if they do hit an OT, they're still at 11k. I'm still able to keep going. So that's one of the biggest things for his winning image, is that not only once he got to the stride game, we do gem bolt first and then finish off with Valeos. That's really what his game plan was. So typically, I've relied on Alexandros, and then of course as we get into the new premium clan collection, we'll use the new Ferraga stride to also have another option as a finisher too. But don't forget about Valeos. Valeos is still key in some of those ideal situations too. And he was just very strongly suited with this stride too. So I wanted to make sure I pointed this out as like the winning image. So now as we go through this deck choices, he's playing 1-1 with Elder and Lambros. So it's basically if he had one already outside of the deck, he had to go into the other one. When you think of premium, I think it's a safe bet to have two grade 4s. Typically, like for example, my last build, I had two grade 4 Lambroses in the main deck. And at that point, it's like in the stride game, you really don't go into that play. It's really when you're going first and you do that first grade 3 turn and you have the option to write down. It really just depends on the matchup too. There are certain matchups you do have to do the write down, otherwise you're gonna have a bad time. And so I just want to stress that where you don't always have to write down. It's really dependent on the matchup. And so if you just want to do a typical Lambros turn, that's perfectly fine. If you have to rely on Elder, that's perfectly fine too as well. And you may notice he's actually playing another grade 3 called Fort Vessel Dragon, and I haven't seen this in a while too. This card was hyped when it first came out, and what it does is when it's placed onto Vanguard Circle, you can Counter Blast, choose one of your opponent's Vanguard, and minus 5k until the end of the turn. So this was another way to reduce the 5k an opponent's Vanguard, and that's so big because yeah, you can in a sense think of your following attacks just be additional plus 5k. So it makes those like small pokes become like 10k shields or hit certain thresholds or like maybe 15k thresholds. It just makes it nice to hit numbers in a sense. And I asked them like, wow, why Fort Vessel Dragon? I thought it was just kind of random because you're playing 4 grade 3 Thavas, the 2 grade 4s, and now you have an additional grade 3 in the form of Fort Vessel Dragon. And this was really insightful what he mentioned, that after he did the write down to grade 2, one of the things that he struggled with is seeing a grade 3 outside of a grade 3 heal Guardian to ride next turn and be able to stride. And keep in mind, he does play the grade 3 heals, so technically you could ride back up to grade 3 and stride, and it doesn't really matter as much during that turn. But if you're stuck on it, it kind of hurts a little bit. But if you ride a grade 3 Excel, you'll get a card back, and it just helps with that regard being 12k base again as well. Nothing is dependent on a Thavas name too, so it just makes it like, oh, you can play any grade 3 you want, and really you can do that too. This was another option that he had. So having that 5th grade 3 really helped him out to have a higher consistency way to get back to grade 3 and stride. Also to help with that, and I think it's worth noting too, he was actually playing the Nickeys at a 3-1 ratio, so he has the V Nickey at 3, and he has the G Nickey at 1. And it's worth mentioning Nickey G because as you reveal any grade 3 from your hand, it could be the grade 3 Heal Guardian as well. You can search for a Thavas card. And so this was like almost another copy of Thavas too. So if you really needed to guarantee that copy of Thavas or even just ride up to Thavas so you don't miss ride, Nickey G would come up into that play. So it's not necessarily just being a stride fighter too, but it's just one of those things that like, hey, this is helpful with consistency reasons, because if I do open up with a grade 3 Heal Guardian, I can at least guarantee the search with a grade 3 Thavas. And obviously Nickey V has its benefits too, but it only works when you ride onto Vanguard. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I think he just leaned on having the guaranteed search if you already have the grade 3 in hand, which I totally understand. So it doesn't hurt to do a 3-1 ratio. Keep in mind, V-Series cards have 10k shield, and G-Era cards like grade 1s only have 5k shield. So when you're playing like G-Era grade 1s, you typically have to have a good reason why you're playing them, because that shield can make a difference too. But if you're playing that at low numbers, it's not as bad in a sense too. And so I just wanted to mention that because it's the importance of the grade 3 synergy that he was going for too. And as we go to the grade 2s, you'll see that even the grade 2 lineup is a bit different. One Tidal Assault, and this is the OG Tidal Assault, and I did the same thing in my video too, where like I just wanted to play one because it was a free restander, and that really you could depend on Alexandro's turn or even like the new Ferrari stride, but also like you can stack for Andre's skill onto it to have it restand once more. So having a restander that also restood a second time after that can really make the best out of your triggers that you drove check to, or any power-ups that you may have given it by other cards too. And that would come in the form of Alania, for example, too. Alania, if those that don't know, this is a grade 2 stoicheia card. It came out one of the early sets of overdress, I think the first set actually. So this card was actually helpful in Zorga and to an extent Magnolia as well. But what it does is that when it's placed onto rearguard circle from hand, you can counterblast, soul blast one, and choose a grade 2 or less card from your drop zone and call it to rearguard, and it gets plus 5k until the end of the turn. So Alania is a way to revive some of the key pieces that you have in the drop zone, or even that you just soul blasted. So like if you roll with, for example, and give it power too at the same time. So this can help with Tidal Assault, like I mentioned, and if you need it for the late game or early game. And another card that helps with that too is Spiritual Body Condensation, where really it's soul blast one, choose one of your cards in your drop zone that are greater, equal to, less of your Vanguard, and call it to rearguard circle and give it plus 5k until the end of the turn. So cards like Tidal Assault really gain that benefit of having extra power put onto it. But Alania really served that purpose too, where one, it's a 10k body, so it's just nice if you're going against a certain matchup like Nightmare Dolls, where they're just like the 9k hits. That can make a real difference. And at the same time, it's a level of aggression too that you can do with this card. So for example, on your grade 2 and grade 3 turns, you can call this one card and have a really solid column. So any 8k grade 1 booster with this makes a 23k column. You're going to hit even if your opponent actually drove check a trigger too. This was the same mentality with Zorga too, where early on you needed to do some damage, and you can call this on your grade 2 turn to really guarantee 2 attacks, especially the one going through if they actually got a trigger during the damage check. So this is huge in that sense too, but also very utility in that sense too. And the last thing that he also emphasized about Alania was the Jumbo turn. So as you play Aqua Force, yes, Jumbo gives you a lot of cards, but there's also setup involved if you haven't noticed, where yeah, you can call 2 cards from your deck to help with that. You still have to fill out the 4 remaining rearguard circles, and sometimes you do have to commit from the hand, and that can kind of like diminish or break even in the sense, or maybe not plus you as much. But Alania was another way to fill up the board by just being 1 card from hand rather than 2 cards from hand. And at the same time, one of the cool things that he mentioned too, since I've already mentioned it, he does play the Andre. Andre is a phenomenal card where you can GB1, Counterblast 1, put this into Soul, and choose one of your rear guards, and then at the end of the battle that unit attack, it can stand and actually get an additional 2k to the end of the turn. So this one makes you have any restander attack again like Tidal Assault, but it could also make a beater like Coral, Pursuit, and other cards into restanders just like that. So the reason that I mentioned about Andre is because Alania and Spiritual Body Condensation can grab it from the soul and also from the drop zone. So if you've already used this card before, or it got like somehow in the drop zone, you still have access to grab it again and still have an aggressive turn. So not only that you're helping with Alania, with filling that board with Gembold, you can actually increase the aggression for that Gembold turn with Andre, which can be impactful. As you realize, like, Gembold is a very solid turn. It does a lot, but it's one of those things where it's like it's not super aggressive compared to some other strides in different clans. So Andre just adds to that extra level of aggression too. So it's something that you do appreciate. It's just be mindful of the counterblast. Obviously, that's a 3 counterblast play because you got Gembold, you got Alania, and now you got Andre. So depending on the counterblast that you have access to, just be mindful of that too. So that's a big tip. Going more into the other grade 2s, we have Coral. So one of the things that I kind of noticed is that he's playing only at 3. And I can see why, because there's only so much room that you have. And as we see with the rest of the deck, it will make more sense too. But as you can see, the grade 3, grade 4 lineup is pretty solid. In fact, he has that extra 5th grade 3. So my guess is that he took the 4th Coral Soul out and really just made room for that too. Coral Soul is very solid too. So I feel like 3 is okay, but you do have access to it with Alania and Spiritual Body Condensation, so you can see them as other copies of Coral Salt too. I guess just in general, I mentioned this with Spiritual Body Condensation too. Think of it as another copy of your card that you have access to, whether it be in the Soul and the Drop Zone. Especially once you get to the Gembo turns, you start drawing pretty much all the pieces that you need. You're going to see at least 1 copy of something. So now having Spiritual Body Condensation can be that extra copy that you really need to execute on your turn. And so Pursuit Assault, mandatory for. This card is super solid. Again, it gets plus 5k for each of your additional rearguard circles. It's a continuous, it works on your opponent's turn. So it's just a big beater that just stays on board unless they retire it, unless they attack it with a Vanguard or some big beefer unit. And it has the Vanguard rearguard skill where you can just Soul Blast and rest 2 of your rearguards and draw cards. So this helps with the Thavas winning image, being able to pseudo stride and be able to get the Elder or the Lambros onto that as well. And what's also, since I'm back on Thavas, one of the keynotes that he mentioned too, certain matchups like Grand Blue, because he did Elder to bring out the Thavas the prior turn, during the stride turns, Thavas is still out there chilling. And Thavas has a rearguard skill where you rest the rearguard and retire one of your opponent's rearguards. So it helps even outside of the jumbo turn to retire opponent's rearguards to prevent like the Negro Lily Cannoneer play. Negro Lily needs to retire a rearguard in order to bring back something from the drop zone like Beatrice and then do the whole shenanigans with Cannoneer in the first place. So being able to essentially retire the board before that even happens, you guarantee not having to worry about the Negro Lily Cannoneer play, for example. As we already talked about Nikki, the biggest one that stood out to me too is Rollock. So we've seen this card with Nightmare Dolls, for example, especially WCC with multiple lists and prior events. So I asked him like, why doesn't Thavas, right? And the biggest reason, as he was playing too, and actually 2 main reasons. The first reason is that if you're going second, your opponent's going to have the usual aggressive turn, especially if they're a very solid deck where the grade 3 turn, they just pop off. And even with Nightmare Dolls too, they pop off as a grade 3 and everything. This can let you PG with 1 card. And so it saves you that hand size so you're able to still do something the following turn. But it also helps you survive just in general, right? Think about it as another PG in that sense because you're already playing other PGs in the deck itself, but this is extra PGs. And what's really cool too, as you write down back to grade 2, this becomes live again. And I was just thinking about it, it's like, wow, that's actually really good now thinking about it. Because his mindset wasn't necessarily just to pop off with Lambros, it was to actually be able to do something that turn, but write down back to grade 2 because he was expecting those key matchups where he had to do that play in order to actually win that game. And so because of that mindset, it makes sense why he would play like Rollox, for example. And I think 3 is a good number too. I don't think 4, I think 4 what might have been too much for Thavas at least too. I know some other decks are able to get away with 4, but I think 3 is a good number in that sense too. Another key component is Nerissa. Nerissa is such a key card because it fuels for the soul. You're able to use a skill to actually abuse the soul to get bigger. And this is a unit that can be targeted with Andre to be able to be a restander. So if you do this, like let's say her skill twice because it's not a once per turn, she becomes 18 to 28. And then if she's on an Excel circle, that easily becomes 23 or 33 in that sense too. So this can become a beater right off the hand early on too for you. This also helped with the synergy with Alania too. So if you did commit more rearguards, this will go into the Sol. So it would refuel that Soul Blast that you use for Alania too as well. As we see with the remaining cards, we see the triggers. The one thing that really stood out to me was the Supersonic Sailor. So this is an old card from probably the beginning of Aqua Force. And it's really, an act, you put it into Sol and you can countercharge. And so one of the things he noticed is that he needed this Sol. And if he was going to be more aggressive or expecting to use Alania more often than not, that extra counterblast would come up. And so you can kind of put that into Soul to help refuel that cost, but still be able to push with your turn too. So a big example is that if you only had 2 counterblasts, you have your Vanguard that uses a counterblast typically. Now if you use Alania, you're out of counterblast. And now you can use the Supersonic Sailor to get that back. And now you can use a card like Andre to be able to add to aggression. So there's those little things too, but it's just additional stuff that you can use. What's also cool, and I thought about it too just recently, is Valeos, that if you do so happen to use a card like Ophelia, and I think that's why he played 3 too, is that when she's face up in the G zone, you can Soul Blast 1 and then essentially countercharge or unlock something. And if you use this to countercharge, then this weekend's like an Alexandro's turn. It weakens other cards that may depend on the scaling of that. But Valeos really just cares that as long as there's 2 face-up cards when it does its skill by the end of the skill, you're still able to 11k lock. The only thing that scales within that skill is really how many riggers you can call during that attack. But the biggest thing is really the 11k lock. That was his goal. So I was just like, oh, that's actually not bad, that you can be a little more dependent on Gaphelia. And obviously with the rest of the deck, we see the Stride Fighters, definitely need those. Some go into Soul Crits. We got PGs in the form of draw PGs. For the G deck, just to wrap up too, 3 Gaphelia, like I mentioned too. I noticed he's playing 2 Ionis and the 1 Ice Barrier, which is pretty standard. The 3 Gaphelia, I think that's because of just being able to counter charge just in case. It's also a great card just to flip. So if he ever got into the long game, it wouldn't hurt to have that. 2 Jumbo, 2 Valeos, the 1 Bellarena, the 2 Alexandros, we got 1 Megiddo and 2 Lambros. At this point, before Premium Collection 2022 comes out, it's a pretty solid lineup in the sense. You can make room for maybe some like tech choices, but there's not really much outside of this that's really worth it. So these are really the essentials. He also gave me his matchups too, so if you guys are curious what he faced Grand Blue, he won. So all of Swiss, he won every round. He won against Grand Blue, Bermuda Highlander, Dimension Police, Norakami Vanquisher, Pale Moon Nightmare Dolls, and Pale Moon Nightmare Dolls again too. So he won all of those. And then once he got into top 8, he actually went against Genesis Regalia. That was his one loss. And when it comes to the Regalia matchup, it's kind of tough because they're like the restanding Vanguard with Force 2. So it's just like, unless you have grade 3 heal Guardians, and if you're going second, you're gonna have a bad time outside of that, typically. Luckily, he had the Rollock too, so I think it helped with that matchup too, but it's one of those things that you need to really open up pretty well to make sure that you survive if they're going first. And then you got Grand Blue, he won against that, and Dimension Police again, and he won against that too as well. So pretty diverse matchups. One matchup that I was asking, I'm like, how do you handle the Vanquisher matchup yourself? And one of the things is that he plays pretty conservatively. So that means that he really didn't call much early on. And it really wasn't until the Stride game where he really just capitalized in the jumbo turn. So just being able to like not give them as much cards really helped him. And then I think what sealed the deal was the Valeos play. So him just going to Valeos and making sure no triggers really affected that turn, especially in OT. He was pretty much in a good spot in this sense too. So he mentioned that the only reason that the Vanquisher player lived one more extra turn is that one of the damage checks on that Valeos turn was a drop PG. So even though he didn't get the power from that, he still get to draw another card. And because of that, he only had 1 card left. And that was the card that actually needed to like defend essentially. So that was an extra turn, but he was able to seal the deal the next turn. So again, congrats to Go Next, the team that got first place overall at Newark. And again, David Song, thanks for sharing your deck list too. He is known as K on Discord again, and I'll put his Discord tag. He's actually one of the up and coming writers for the blog for Rogue of the Seven Seas, coming up soon too. So I'm excited to see his first article, and so you guys can see that as well. And obviously it's going to be related to Aqua Force too, so that's exciting as well. Again, if you want to level up your gaming, check out Next Level Gaming's 10% off discount link for more playmats, really cool playmats that are coming out. He's got some new product coming out too, so I'll keep it on the download for now. But some people already know that it might be in the form of dice, and so I'll keep that out for you guys. The second thing, if you want to buy your bundles from 50 Card Shop, use the discount code Jaime for your next purchase. And then also, if you want to support through TCG Player, use the affiliated link. Anything helps out with the channel as well. And so, what are you guys' thoughts too? I'd love to hear your thoughts about this deck and some of the card choices. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below. I can answer them, or even David as well too. And if you like this video and you found some value of it too, feel free to share this with other fellow amigos too. Card fighters like yourself would appreciate this kind of content, especially whether it be Aqua Force, Thavas, or just Premium in general, especially with the team links going on. People just want to know what's topping. People want to know what's going on too, so that's very helpful in that sense too. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe, and of course hit that bell for instant notifications so you can get more future content coming soon. Till the next time, amigos. Bye!